Where is the love and passion for video games when it was so easy to find 20 years ago? The video game world was once a very different place, a time when games were created to bring joy, entertainment, and challenge to gamers. The priority was quality. Game makers were fighting to deliver the best game, not the best-selling game, or the most movie-like, or most eye-catching, or biggest, or most accessible. Today, video games are just different. They've become too easy, too overbearing, and too safe. The structure for new video games today feels way too player-assisted. Challenge has been replaced by follow-me dotted lines, brain-dead AI, and dumbed-down mechanics like health regeneration, quick-time events, and auto-aiming. The common game no longer punishes us. The margin for error has been reduced in games so that we may all win, and that's not a good thing because the games suffer. New role-playing games like Final Fantasy XV, Fallout 4, and even The Witcher 3 pretty much play themselves, allowing players to go on autopilot as they stare into the deep abyss of that mini-map compass. Take a look at their old counterparts. It's a very different experience playing something like Chrono Cross. There's no blinking arrow to follow. You've got to explore, ask questions, and figure out where to go the old-fashioned way. Fallout 2's freedom, discovery, and player-driven narrative versus Fallout 4's all-seeing compass is another example. Making players feel invincible in shooting games is another. Or Diablo 3's confining character system versus D2's much more liberating skill trees and attribute points. The mental component of finding out how to play a video game has been eliminated, that sense of adventure being replaced by the need to handhold. It's the perpetual dumbing down of video games. But mass accessibility has also created constraining video game development on top. One of the big modern trends is to create the stop and start game, where control is taken from you without your ability to do anything about it. Games that let you play for a minute but then stop the gameplay to explain something or to point something out or to provide exposition. Shooting games like Battlefield or Call of Duty let you play for 45 seconds before stopping you for a cutscene, a forced interaction, a "hey, look at this," or to kick a door in. Why do we have to kick in so many doors? This pointless walking simulation moment in Battlefield 3 is only in the game so you don't miss this nicely rendered helicopter. And this one so you catch that sweet-ass train crashing right before your eyes. I mean, they look cool, but for shooting games, I want to actually play the video game, not watch it. Many AAA games today are wannabe movies laden with enough dialogue and cutscenes to test your patience. They often hold your hand, restrict your movements, and make you walk through carefully scripted game areas so that you don't miss a beat. Unlike a game like Uncharted, these kinds of games have nothing to fall back on to justify such inclusions. Watching a long cutscene in a Naughty Dog game is different because the rest of the game is outstanding and non-contrived. Most exposition is actually interactable as well, which is a neat way of releasing control back to the player while things are actually happening. But when Battlefront 2 won't stop sending me down linear corridors, interrupting my gameplay, or making me holster my weapon, it's just not the same. The following gameplay section in Battlefront 2 is probably the best example of why modern video games suck. This forced, boring, defend me section with endless respawning enemies is so atrocious. You basically just mash the attack button for 5 minutes for no reason other than to make the game just a little bit longer. The entire level is an on-rails tutorial for saber combat, and the payoff at the end isn't a substantial moment of great gameplay, it's another forced cutscene. At no point does this stop and start gameplay of this level add anything to the surprisingly well-voiced exchange between Luke and Del, it actually hurts it. Exposition is great, but pointless when the surrounding interactivity is so awful and brainless and autopiloting. Back in the day, the video game experience was much more about challenging gameplay. I think a great example are the classic platformers like Mario, Banjo, Donkey Kong, and Spyro the Dragon. This dying breed of games had the features any serious gamer craves. Innovative gameplay, unique mechanics, and a great story. Plus, they were just fun games that celebrated being fun. They let you dive into the action. No minimap, no manipulative game design, and no hand-holding. You had to figure out how to complete the game by yourself, or how to unlock warps, or throw yourself through giant paintings. This is the critical piece to the failing of the modern-day video game. We don't have to figure out anything anymore. We're given every possible helping hand imaginable: follow-me quest arrows, detailed minimaps, simplified objectives, and a compass that connects the dots for us. There's no thinking in video games today or piecing solutions together. The Witcher 3 is guilty of all of this, yet there are moments of brilliance when it pushes this hand-holding to the side. You'll come across the odd treasure hunting mission, or here's a map and a clue, figure it out quest from Yennefer, for example. I would argue that The Witcher 3 should have pursued more of these, as the rest of the game is a cakewalk that falls prey to being overly accessible. After all, you can spend the entire game staring at the minimap and those dots. Thankfully, you can turn off much of these options in the menu, but this is a rare feature. The revolution to make our games easier and provide such assistance to the player at every opportunity has potentially made us less curious and adventurous. We have become less patient and explorative, relying on systems that make things easier rather than challenging. Challenge is no longer based on mechanical playability, but on workload. Getting a new ammo pouch in Far Cry Primal is more about a labor-intensive time sink than challenge. It's a measure of how far you're willing to walk to kill a bear rather than the challenge of how to beat the bear. Obtaining a new weapon in Assassin's Creed is about clicking your map and identifying treasure locations, rather than requiring you to find it by yourself, or a clue, or a map, or a book entry. What happened to the days of exploring, walking around, talking to people, or stumbling on something really cool, or playing a game for the sake of enjoyment rather than achievement? AAA video game development has fallen back on what's safe rather than what is interesting or unique or challenging. It's a system of safety nets where companies push out the same games over and over, making them more accessible and easier with each new game. They basically find what works, monetize it, and dumb down the rest of it to appeal to the largest common denominator. But why are they actually doing this? I believe it to be a lack of confidence. Many people believe that putting out a game that threatens the way most people have been taught to play games to be suicide. But I would argue that it is the unwillingness to create something that a game maker truly believes in, yet might be afraid of. The irony is that the very instant a AAA game developer attempts to reinvent the wheel is often the moment they go under, but is that really true? Not always, as proven by a select few very innovative video games. Most video game makers don't trust themselves to release that frightened mentality of playing it safe, which is why we rarely see the next big, unique video game come to the market. This safety net mentality is why we see franchises like our good friend Far Cry, Destiny, Call of Duty, and Assassin's Creed repeat themselves time and time again. They believe in simple math. What works adds up, and what doesn't just does not. This acceptance is why unique video games are just so hard to come by, and why so many games just exist, rather than try to advance the medium in some way or form. I will be the first to argue that 15 or 20 years ago we did get more unique, groundbreaking, and exciting video games, and that this negative conviction wasn't causing game makers to be so narrow-minded. These days, big publishers, they simply hide in corners. They deliver what is smart and practical rather than what is interesting and special. It is the downfall of the modern-day game. And worse, most of these games are designed not with heart or passion, but instead with a profit-driven hard-on for making the most money possible. Add it all up and we have the blueprint for the modern-day video game. Safe, samey, easy, and monetized to the moon and back. This industry, us, every gamer, is dying for new, exciting, challenging video games that break the boundaries of the modern-day play-it-safe, all-hold-your-hand, accessible video game. I only wish that video game makers today could actually see that.